Next up, agenda item number 21. Consider impossible action to approve a resolution of the City of Kyle renaming Rebel Drive to support and promote community camaraderie and tranquility to a name which will be advantageous to all diversities, to a propitious title for all of the citizens of Kyle, holding a public hearing and providing for related matters in accordance with the City of Kyle Code of Ordinances. This item is not registered to have a public hearing, but it does need to have one in order to get it passed. So attorney is advised that we can just open up a public hearing and ask if anyone wishes to speak. Considering that we just passed a $134 million budget on first reading without anyone coming to lift a voice, yay or nay, I don't think we'll probably have much here, but we'll find out. So if there's no objections, I'm going to open the public hearing on this one right away before we go any further. All right, hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience or online wishing to speak who is registered or otherwise? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It is now closed. And Steve and Samantha, I can see their faces showing up, so they're going to talk a little bit about the logistics of what happens when you go through a road name change. But before we do that part, I wanted to just give a little bit of the background on what's bringing this forward. Obviously, with the Hays CISD School District, the Hays High Rebels having changed their mascot. Originally the thought was that we were going to take Rebel Drive to the voters as well. What we found out as a result of that process is that the power of initiative is not granted to the council currently. So instead of offering through the power of initiative for the voters to have a say on renaming Rebel Drive, what we are allowed to do is ask the voters whether or not they wish to for us to the council to have the power of initiative, so that items like this in the future, the council can decide if it wishes to proposition the voters on such a matter. So, but unfortunately, the opportunity to bring this before the voters is not something that we have at our disposal as a council right now. So considering the fact that the school district has already officially taken the vote to change the mascot and greatly impacted by that, I felt very comfortable going ahead and bringing an ordinance back, allowing for us to, by ordinance, go ahead and change the name if that was the council's will. And Samantha and Steve can talk about the logistics again. The backup material, as the council will notice, does not currently have a name in place. It's a blank. But that being said, the theme of the day, as put forward by the majority of this council and staff, has been one celebrating a true hero to the city of Kyle, and Mr. Sonny Falcon, and someone who really helped pioneer a lot of notoriety and bring a lot of enjoyment not only to himself, but throughout the world, really, by helping to coin the name fajita and to make it a popular dish. One of the things that I think that I've heard the council speak about, if we were to rename Rebel Drive, the desire would be to keep it non-controversial and allow for us to recenter that name away from a word that is associated with a part of really American past and Texas history that certainly we have kind of collectively as a society decided may not be the best image or word or culture to celebrate. And the more over the course of this year that I've gotten to understand the true history of the fajita in Kyle and Mr. Falcon, the more I kind of am bewildered that we don't celebrate him more. And a quick history lesson will show that the city of Kyle used to celebrate fajita and Fajita Fest. And Fajita King, Mr. Falcon himself, was a big part of that before he passed away. And this just seems like the right time to bring forward a possible change. As to the name itself, there are a couple other things. There's questions around what should we name the road after? Who should we name the road after? And one of the considerations was Mayor James Adkins. who was Kyle's first African-American mayor, who served for more than one term at the beginning of this century. And we have already named an entrance street after Mr. Adkins, and I believe Mr. Rizo has got a proposal potentially seeking to honor Mr. Adkins coming up, Mayor Adkins. But this street, honestly, it made sense in my mind, and I think in the mind of many of us, to potentially rename it after Mr. Falcon to help us bring it forward. So the question is, do you name it something like Sonny Falcon Drive, which is a name that most people don't necessarily understand, or do you try to keep with the spirit of Rebel Drive, which was a short, widely understood word, and go with something like Fajita Drive? And obviously, I'm going the long-winded way of saying that Fajita Drive, all things considered, makes a lot of sense for me personally as a perfect replacement from Rebel Drive. We're taking a piece of Kyle history that does not deserve to be celebrated and replacing it with an even better piece of Kyle history that deserves to be celebrated far and wide. So with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to really whoever would like to speak. But before we go too much further down the road of the Fajita Drive, if council would like, we can turn the floor over to staff to discuss the logistics of what a name change would look like. Does anyone of the council have a desire one way or another?
Please do that first.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Samantha Armbruster, Director of Communications for the record, and I am joined by Steve with our planning department. We have a brief breakdown of the process for a name change in the city of Kyle. I'm going to turn it over to Steve first to talk about the logistics, and then I will end the presentation to discuss notifications. So Steve, take it away.
Okay, thank you. I am Steve Clamons. I'm the GIS administrator for the city. I manage all the mapping applications, and part of that job is addressing coordinator, which also includes handling street name change process. And we don't do this very often, so I thought we thought it'd be a good idea to step through what actually happens here. So first of all, Rebel Drive is part of the state highway system. It's part of Ranch Road 150, but the Texas Transportation Code and TxDOT give control of naming streets like this over to the local jurisdictions. So we can do this without TxDOT's approval. For the city's part, the street name change process is outlined in the city code, chapter 38, article 7. And in general, the council can propose a street name change at any time. They simply must hold a public hearing and pass a resolution describing the new name and the extent of the road it applies to. In the code, it gives guidelines for the new name, which says should reflect the city's diversity and say something about the history or geography of the area, or honor families or individuals with ties to Kyle. And I think the mayor did a good job describing how that works in this situation. So the new name will replace Rebel Drive for the entire length of the street, from West Center Street up to the intersection at FM 2770 and North Old Stagecoach Road, where it'll continue as Ranch Road 50 as it goes west from there. Our Public Works Department will replace street signs. There's 14 intersections that they'll have to make new signs for. And also along that stretch of road, there are 14 commercial properties and 10 residences. But this also affects anyone who has a PO box at the post office and uses the physical address of the post office itself for deliveries. I will update 911 emergency service databases with the new name, but the Ranch Road 150 label will always be listed in their system as well. I will also notify the appraisal district and other mapping services like Google Maps and Bing Maps, whatever people use online. And then I think Samantha will issue a press release and help with notifications to all the property owners and residents, and she can take it from here.
Yes, as he mentioned, there would be a certified letter that would be sent to the business owners, property owners, and the current residents, in addition to a press release. Also important to know is the notifications that would need to be done by the residents and the businesses that are along this stretch of the roadway. So they would need to process an address change request with the post office. And then there is a list here of other providers that we would recommend them reaching out and notifying of their new address. All of this information that has been shared tonight would be included in the notification that's sent in the form of the certified letter and other notifications. Some notifications that won't be required, and Steve mentioned this a little bit, is the appraisal district, because those are done by the legal description and not street address. The passport office, that is unnecessary unless they have an application that's currently in process. And we would also make sure that our internal utility service and billing is notified in process. So that would be unnecessary as a notification. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Anybody on council have questions or comments?
Mayor?
Now's the time.
Mayor?
I have some thoughts.
I have some.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this item because I'm excited about the history of the fajita. About a year ago, I got to break bread with Councilman Rizo and Councilman Villalobos, and they were telling me all about the history of Kyle. And I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, where we take our Mexican food very seriously. And they started telling me how Kyle was the birthplace of the fajita. And I told them to go take a hike because that could not possibly be true at all. And I didn't want us to get into a situation like Austin, where all of a sudden they invented the breakfast taco and, we go down that road. But they kept telling me and showing me different things that led down to that path of it being true. And so being a lover of history, I immediately went and started researching it because I wanted to discredit it. And the more I searched to discredit it, the more it was in my face that, yes, Kyle does have a huge claim to the fajita, to the coining of the word fajita, and to the selling of fajitas. And it is documented in several places, in publications. And so last year was the 50th anniversary of the fajita in Kyle with that name. And I just think it's an absolutely beautifully rich history for the city, one that I am ashamed that I didn't know about living in Hayes County since 1998. I had never heard that before until those two council members told me about it. And I think that this is step number one for this city to embrace that history, to honor that history and that culture, and to move forward in the celebration of the fajita. And I think it's absolutely beautiful that we are bringing this up on National Fajita Day when Kyle, Texas is in fact the birthplace of the fajita. And I will say that proudly to anybody that asks. And annoyingly, half the time when I'm in a restaurant and someone brings me fajitas, I make it known that Kyle was where it all started. So I thank those council members very much for bringing that up and fighting for that history. And I look forward to continuing the work as this council to honor that history. So thank you all very much. I'm just extremely pleased with this.
Councilmember Koch, every time I hear that story,
it brings a certain level of emotion the way you tell it, and it lends credence to the research that we have done and the anecdotal stories that we hear. But to come back forward and have that articulated and documented in history and quite frankly within a dissertation at Texas A&M is huge, and it lends credence to a lot of the culture in our town, and really truly the deep roots of diversity and entrepreneurialism and business and commerce and all those different things. A large influence in economy is the fajita all over the United States. So for it to come here now, Sonny Falcon is from Mercedes, Texas, and to understand the affinity of that, that's where my grandmother was born, in Mercedes, Texas, in a pier and beam house, very poor house, in the neighborhood where the Falcons family grew up. So knowing that, and then coming forward and by accident seeing that history and learning about it, and then going back and asking questions about it before my grandmother passed was good enough for me to confirm that yes, definitely, that's the guy. And they did bring it to Kyle, and what a wonderful, rich piece of culture to celebrate and to hang our hats on, and to furthermore bring a celebration back to Kyle where it has been taken to other places. So thank you for this opportunity, and I think it's a great moment for the city of Kyle.
Councilmember Rizo, I just want to say thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing that to us so eloquently. I kind of tear up when I think about our history, where Kyle's come from, evolved from. I can tell you right now that growing up in Kyle was a blessing. Everybody knew everybody, and it's still almost like that today. Even though we're a town of 50,000 plus, I've got so many new friends, so many new people that I see or deal with on a daily basis, and it's a beautiful thing that we've got that family feeling still. But to bring some of our history and combine it with the population we have now is just a positive in what Kyle is. There's a reason people come to Kyle, and that's because of our history and because of our family feeling. And I really believe that sharing that part of history with the citizens of Kyle today is just a plus, and it's going to continue to help Kyle carry that legacy of who we are. And I hope that the kids get to see what I saw, the new kids here in Kyle, growing up at the fiestas, the families coming out together, all the smells, all the aromas, the music, the culture, everything that I experienced during those fiestas was amazing. And I hope other generations get that experience as well, coming out and seeing everybody at every puesto, and which is our food booths, doing the best they could with whatever different meats they were cooking, from fajitas to gorditas to tripas to anything that you could make, to hamburgers, is something that really incorporated what the fiesta was here in Kyle, the music, everything, and the costumes, naming the queen candidate. It was a very beautiful time in our city, and we still have it a little bit, but to really emphasize that and share it with the rest of Kyle, I think it's just going to be a win for us as a city. And I think it's going to make us better as a city. Thank you.
Mayor, I would like to say that, yes, I do agree that Rebel Drive, the name needs to change. But I do want to let the business owners along, hopefully now new Fajita Drive, that I do understand that it is going to cost them money to do this, not just by going through the list that Samantha gave us, but also all of their marketing material, their letterheads, all of that is going to have to change. And I know that's going to come at a cost to the businesses. So while I appreciate that, but I do agree that the name needs to change. So I just want to kind of let the business owners know I do understand, but it needs to change. Thank you.
Councilmember Rizo, I just want to say thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing that so to us so eloquently. And I think it's just going to be a win for us as a city. And I think it's going to make us better as a city. Thank you.
This is Councilman Tobias. Well, I feel left out. I would love to go and eat some fajitas. That'll be another time, though, guys. Just joking. But in all seriousness, I do agree with Councilman Shia about the financial impact of changing a address, also to the residents if it has to do with their driver's license, mail, and so forth. It could cost maybe a small burden for them and the business owners. So it'd be something that we need to consider as well. Though I like the idea of the naming of possibly fajita. I also like the idea of possibly using the name of the person who designed it and who created it, Mr. Falcon. Be just a consideration of Falcon Drive in that sense there, and honor the diversity that we have here in Kyle, honoring the Hispanic culture and community that we have here in Kyle, and the family that I've known for many years, and I'm sure Councilman Rizo knows a lot of family members from the Falcon family. And so that's just my input of maybe a consideration of naming that drive after Mr. Falcon. And again, we also would need to be in consideration of the cost for the businesses and the residents.
Councilmember Tobias, it's a great point you bring up. Unfortunately, we already have a Falcon Street in our city. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I believe we have Falcon Street, and okay. And the reason I know is because I drive down our city and I see the Martinez Street, Falcon Street, all the different families here, and I keep thinking there's not a Rizo Drive anywhere in the city, and our family's been here forever. But I'm okay with that. I'm getting over it. But definitely, we do have Falcon Street already, and I more power to all the families that have street names after their family, and I think those are really great families. I've known them my whole life, and it's great that they're being honored in certain streets in certain parts of our area of Kyle. So definitely.
Plus, also,
that's a great point.
Yeah, I would love to as well, but unfortunately, for some of our newer residents, I think it would get lost in translation, and they would just think it was named after a bird, falcon. So we'd have to kind of, so if we did name it after Mr. Falcon, I would say we'd have to use his entire name.
Well, I think we're using a name that he coined, and he came up with the name Fajita, using Faja to mean belt in Spanish. So I think we are naming it very much after him when we use the word fajita, because that's the name that he gave the skirt steak.
I think it's an object and an ideal that brings people together, and there's not going to be any. I mean, what can you say bad about fajita at any point, right? Whether it's culture's issues or social issues that change throughout, it's something that brings a lot of brings a lot of more like soul food. It's a Texas staple. So I think the name in and of itself brings a great amount of togetherness, man. Every time you think about it, is how families get together to eat that. People break bread to get together, of all walks of life, come down here, come to Texas, come to this area to have fajita. So I think it's good.
And I know this is all coming about because there's going to be a change in the name of Rebel Road. And I can tell you that I grew up in Kyle. I went to Hayes High School. I knew what it was like to have Rebel pride in that school, and it was all about pride in the school. It was never about anything else for us kids growing up. It was just about pride in the school. We didn't really know the outside issues or how offensive that name could be. That's something that I hope that people never hold against us. I know I've had conversations where people talk about, you went to Jack C. Hayes Rebels, and I can tell you right now, it was just about our school. For us kids, it was about being prideful in our football team, our band, the school we went to. It was never about, you know, hate or anything else like that. I, it made me sad a little bit later on to find out that we were a part of something that other people in parts of the world, it was offensive to them. I didn't realize that it was hurtful. You know, we just didn't know because we grew up in a small community, didn't really go a lot of places. You know, we grew up a little bit poor. I'll tell you right now, we weren't dirt poor, but we were poor and we didn't travel a lot. So we really didn't know what it was that this name would do to other people in other communities until I went to a football game one time and saw how hurtful the name could be sometimes. And I can understand why there's a name change needed now. You know, it's going to be hard for some of the people that went to Jackson Hayes Rebels because in a way it says that you were a part of something awful, but you weren't. You were there for the school. You were there for your friends, and that's what you're going to remember are those memories of your friends being there, the school you grew up in. You know, the name could change, but the buildings will be there. Your memories of your friends will be there. It's that we're never going to change that part of who you were growing up. We're just trying to. The reason the school changed was a reason I believe that was justified, and it was because it's hurtful for some people. And now with the Rebel Drive, I see why the change is needed, and I can tell you right now that I you know it's something that growing up in Jackson Hayes High School was never thought of, but now that you know we're in, I would say now the world itself and seeing what this name could do, I can see why it's so important to have the name change. I know for me it's going to be something that I can agree with and support changing the name. And one reason is because I have a lot of friends who I love dearly, and I just don't want anything that would be out there that would hurt them. And especially in all the communities where I have friends, amazing friends that I dearly care for and love. So I can see why we're doing this. And I know there's going to be people that are a little upset about it, but I can tell you right now that anything that's hurtful is something that needs to be changed, especially if there's a bad history with it.
I actually agree with what you're saying, Councilman Rizzo. I think that certainly this won't be something that is received by everyone the same way. I think some folks really like it being called Rebel Drive, and some may not understand the rich history of the fajita. But at the same time, it's really not a name change that's designed to be universally accepted immediately. But I think that over time, in particular, the name change will be something that is accepted in the community. And in particular, if this council continues to carry forward and leading the conversation about our rich history with the fajita. So the more we follow through in celebrating Kyle's history in this way, I think the better folks will receive it over time. That's my hope, at least. Any other comments? Councilor Ellison, you said you had something to say a little bit earlier. I hadn't heard you speak yet.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the presentation and the thoughtfulness of, you know, the impact. I think I'm going to speak to that part first. So thank you, Steve. Good to see you, by the way, Steve. Hope all is well. And certainly appreciate the work that was done to kind of give a full scope of what the change might look like and who that might impact. Certainly, it might be a cumbersome for some, but it was interesting to look at the map that you all showed and how spread out it kind of was. There was definitely some closer towards the Center Street part, but I think now might be the time to do it if you're going to do it to impact the fewest amount of people as well. So that I guess that's just the point I'm trying to convey on that. As far as some of the comments were made both by the mayor and very, very touching comments by Councilmember Rizo just And thank you for sharing that story as well, Mayor Pro Tem, about your lunch with the other council members and being educated about that. I think that's really an important piece that has kind of been brought together by a number of you all, is the education piece about it. And I think as we, as a people in this country, that is a melting pot of folks that look all different kinds of ways and come from all different kinds of backgrounds, being willing and open-minded enough to accept those and surround yourself and learn about other cultures and be open-minded about that. Even when sometimes it may sound a little far-fetched, right, Coach? To be open and willing to, see that and learn and grow from that history. And I think it was really unique to hear Councilmember Rizo talk about being a former Hayes high school student. And, the high school for many of us, especially in Texas, is a very special time for us, whether you played sports or particularly football, or you're in the band or different things like that, or whatever it may done. It's a very sentimental time and brings a lot of memories. So I can certainly empathize with that. It shows a lot of character and something special in someone that's willing to say, even though, I shared and had those special times, I'm willing to change this because I can see it hurts another community, or it may make another community uncomfortable. And I've said this before privately to some people, but I'll say it publicly now. This city has embraced me. I love this city, and I try to give back as much as I can because of how this city has embraced me and the people that have been warm and welcoming and befriended me in this city. I will say, speaking just as me, this is Dex, not speaking on behalf of any group or race or anything like that. It is something to know that your peers around you that don't look like you and may not have a shared experience of maybe a symbol or a term or things like that may make you feel when you walk around in a community, even though you love that community and that community embraces you. For your peers that don't look like you to be willing and wanting to educate themselves and willing to make that change on behalf of your feelings and how that may make you feel, that to me is the ultimate show of love from one person to another. And that is what makes me happy to live in this community, and what makes me happy to serve in this community. I am grateful and humbled to do this. And so I thank my colleagues for their open-mindedness and ability to evolve and work together. And I'm just happy to be a part of this. So thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Ellison. Any other thoughts or topics? Motions?
Motion to approve.
You need to specify a street name in the motion.
Motion to approve the changing of Rebel Drive to Fajita Drive.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Villalobos, that we approve the ordinance changing the name Rebel Drive to Fajita Drive. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. It's an ordinance. Is there any objection to this item being finally passed? Seeing none, it is finally passed.